Hello mouse friends. So today we are going to complete our book Shoo Caveflies, Cave Mice, the 14th edition by Geronimo Stilton. In the previous videos we have read till chapter 8. I'll share the link in description. So let's begin reading from chapter 9. And today we are gonna finish this book. So let's begin. Chapter 9. Roar. The next morning, Pickaxe got everything we needed for the climb, including braided vines, spikes, and granite hooks. I'll take a rain check on the exhausting climb, Sally announced. So we left her behind and started climbing. Holy boulders! It was exhausting. I was congratulating myself on my progress when suddenly I slipped. The next thing I knew, I was dangling like a Mesozoic mad mouse from the edge of a steep cliff. Help! I yelled, my whiskers trembling. Luckily, Thea managed to grab the end of the vine I had wrapped around me. Trap and Pickaxe rushed over. Together, the three of them pulled me up the rocky cliff. Saved by a whisker. My heart was still hammering like a prehistoric woodpecker when we entered the big cloud that hid the top of the mountain. Immediately, a freezing rain soaked our fur. Let's take shelter in there, Thea yelled, pointing to a cave on the side of the mountain. It was so dark in the cave, we couldn't see much, but we were too exhausted to care. I'm so tired, I could sleep for a week. Trap yawned. I'm so tired, even this rough rock seems comfortable, Thea added. Rough rock? I exclaimed. I guess I got lucky because I found a really soft blanket. I was about to drift off to sleep when suddenly, roar! A megalithic growl filled the cave. Bones and stones! That was no blanket. It was a wild, ferocious cave bear. Terrified, I closed my eyes. Was I about to become just another grisly Stone Age statistic? But at that moment, the strangest thing happened. Pickaxe approached the bear, looked it in the eye, and burst out laughing. Hey, you're not a scary cave bear, Pickaxe exclaimed. You're my old friend Bearby, Pickaxe said. The bear greeted Pickaxe with a big bear hug. Then Pickaxe explained that during one of his legendary explorations, he had saved Bearby from the grips of an Isosaurus. Apparently, Bearby used to live in the polar lands before she decided she preferred a milder climate. Bearby offered us some prehistoric mountain honey. It was delicious. A moment later, Pickaxe and Trap fell into their Stone Age slumber. Come on, Jer, let's go get those PU petals, my sister suggested. I wasn't thrilled about climbing more cliffs, but I couldn't say no to Thea. And we were on a deadline, so with Bearby watching over our sleeping friends, we set off. Thanks to my sister, one of the most athletic rodents in prehistory, we climbed to the top without any trouble. Well, okay, I was huffing and puffing, but that's between you and me. When we arrived at the peak, we finally saw them, the infamous PU flowers. At first glance, they didn't look like much, though they were a strange shade of green. But then we got a whiff of them. PU! Those flowers chunk more than my cousin Trap when he hasn't bathed for an entire geological era. Oh, what a stench! I moaned. Reminds me of a stinky mouse. A voice called out. Holy boulders! It was Tiger Khan. Chapter 10. Creak, crick, crack. I couldn't believe it. Tiger Khan and his hench cats had beaten us to the flowers. They weren't troubled at all by the stench. After all, they are accustomed to the stink of Bugville, the swamp where they live. The tigers had already gathered a bunch of flowers in their claws. Fossilized feta! What terrible luck we were having! It turns out those rotten saber-toothed tigers had been following us for miles and miles and miles. How dare you spy on us! Thea shrieked. The tigers roared with laughter. If it weren't for that flea-ridden mammoth protecting you, we would have already turned you into mouse kebabs, one of the giant cats snarled. Just then I realized we had left Woolba behind. Gulp! Who would come to our rescue now? Get them! Tiger Khan shouted as he reached for me with his claws. I covered my eyes, my heart raced, and my whiskers shook. Great rumbling lava explosions. I was having a prehistoric panic attack. But then nothing happened. I opened my eyes and zzz. Tiger Khan was sleeping as soundly as a kitten. Phew, the Stone Age slumber had knocked him out just in time. Even though Tiger Khan was sleeping, the other saber-toothed tigers were very much awake. Thea and I began to run at lightning speed along the edge of the treacherous cliffs. Give up, you little cave vermin! The saber-toothed tigers roared at us. Sooner or later, we are going to win. Unfortunately, sooner came a lot faster than later. I was doing my best, trying to keep up with Thea when I got a little too close to the edge. Careful, Jer! Thea shouted. But it was too late. I lost my balance and fell into the abyss, tumbling down the mountain. I don't want to be extinct, I yelled, my cry echoing off the roofs. The good news was that I managed to grab onto a shrub that was poking out of the rocks. The bad news was that the plant was too fragile and the roots began to slowly give way. Creak, crick, crack. I could already picture myself spread flat like cream cheese in the sun when a sharp sound broke the silence of the mountains. Squaw, squaw, squaw. A shadow fell over me as a flying dinosaur came into view. It was Squaw, our pterodactyl friend. With nimble claws, he grabbed me by the paw and lifted me up into the air. Thanks, Squaw, I squeaked, breathing a sigh of relief. But there was no time to celebrate. My sister was fighting off vicious Tiger Khan and his hench cats, and she was all alone. We rushed to Bear's cave, where I quickly explained the situation. Then the bear, the bird, and I hurried back to the top of the mountain, leaving Trap and Pickaxe still slumbering away. Bear was an agile climber, and she had no problem scaling the jagged mountain cliffs. I was so exhausted, I had to hitch a ride with the giant pterodactyl. Once we got to the top, we spotted Thea hurling sharp rocks at the saber-toothed tigers. In fact, many of the nasty cats were already sprouting megalithic-sized bumps on their heads. The saber-toothed beasts were super angry, but before they could fight back, Bearby reached the top of the mountain. Roar! A bear! Cried the cats. Run for your lives! Bearby raced after the pack, but the saber-toothed tigers were quicker than a bunch of velociraptors. They grabbed the sleeping Tiger Khan and took off, mewing like frightened kittens. Sorry, Mr. Bear, stammered one saber-toothed tiger. We won't bother you again, added another. Bearby let out a loud roar in response, which sent the frightened felines rolling down the mountain like sacks of Paleozoic potatoes. The bear isn't a mister, Thea yelled after them. She is a miss. Once the tigers had disappeared, we thanked Bearby for her help. Then we quickly got busy gathering the PU flowers. Yuck! I'd make a bet their stench was the most disgusting smell in all prehistory. I held my nose as I plucked the flowers. What else could I do? Trap's health was in my paws. When we all returned to Bearby's den, Trap and Pickaxe had just woken up from their Stone Age slumber. Okay, my cousin exclaimed, jumping to his feet. Let's get moving. Why is everyone standing around? Let's go find those flowers. Yes, yes, Pickaxe agreed. Time is running out. No one moved a whisker. Instead, we started laughing. Trap and Pickaxe scratched their heads in confusion until Thea explained what had happened. She held up the bunch of freshly picked PU flowers, waving them in the air like a trophy. Oh, thanks, cousins, Trap squeaked. I knew I could count on you. Pickaxe broke up our love fest with a dose of reality. Our mission isn't over yet. We need to make the tea. The 3 days are almost up, he reminded us. Chapter 11 PUT. We scampered down to the foot of the mountain as fast as we could go without breaking our tails. I'm too fond of my tail. When we arrived, we found the band of saber-toothed tigers surrounding a sleeping Tiger Khan. Yep, he was still under the Stone Age slumber. Lucky for us, the cats were having no luck trying to wake their boss. We also found my nemesis, Sally Rockmason, busily preparing a huge pot of boiling water for the tea. Holy cheese chunks! Had Sally turned over a new cave leaf? Was she really being helpful? I wanted to ask, but time was running out. We had to get the tea brewing. We began pulling the petals of the PU flowers and tossing them into the bubbling cauldron. It didn't take too long before a terrible stench rose from the boiling water. Bones and stones! It stunk! The smell was so strong that the toucans, parrots, and hummingbirds stopped singing and flew away, disgusted. Even Woolbur tried to knot in his trunk to keep out the foul odor. Finally, the tea was ready. Pickaxe poured it into a bowl and told Trap to drink it. Oh, my cousin protested, wrinkling his nose. I can't drink this slop. The stench is worse than the breath of a sunk weed. Eating tea racks. Pickaxe noted, if you prefer not to smell the stink, I can club you over the head. He offered. After all the trouble we had gone to finding the remedy, it was pretty clear no one was moving a whisker until Trap drank that tea. Reluctantly, Trap lifted the ball to his snout and gulped down the whole thing. It's not so bad, he admitted, smacking his lips when he was done. It reminds me a bit of the curdled milk used in mammoth milkshakes. Ah, the taste of home. Then he peeked into the pot. I just might drink the rest of it, he declared. But at that moment, we noticed the pack of tigers looking at their leader sadly. Yes, Tiger Khan is a ferocious, nasty cat who's always trying to make mice meat out of us for dinner. But a real cave mouse always helps other and doesn't hold a grudge. So we carved out a little funnel from the Jurassic palm leaf and made the leader of the band of felines drink the infusion while he was still asleep. The saber-toothed tigers looked at us without a word until boing! Tiger Khan opened his eyes and popped up like a spring. Tears sprang to his eyes as he stared fondly at his hench cat standing over him. So you aren't the good-for-nothings I thought you were, he exclaimed, hugging each one. You made me the tea. The saber-toothed tigers guiltily confessed that, in fact, we cave mice had actually prepared and shared the tea. Tiger Khan was livid. He looked like he was about to explode into 1,000 furry pieces. You fools! How could you let a bunch of cave mice save me? Don't you realize I have a reputation to uphold? My prestige as a ferocious cave mouse eater? My fame as a ruthless saber-toothed tiger? My status as the great leader of the band of felines? Tiger Khan marched off, still ranting and lashing his tail back and forth in disgust. What a bunch of kittens, he roared. Can't you cats get anything right? The pack followed behind him, heads hung low, trying to explain what happened to their leader without getting him riled up was like trying to fly him. It was impossible. Soon, the humiliated cats disappeared over the horizon. At last, we were rid of those Paleozoic pests. Just then, I noticed Pickaxe staring wistfully at the few drops of tea left in the pot. Even though years had passed, I encouraged him to try some. Hey, you never know. Maybe he could cure his own Stone Age slumber. So Pickaxe took a bowl and filled it with the stinging concoction. Then he drank it down quickly as we watched, holding our breath. Glug, 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 glug. When he was finished, he wiped his mouth with the back of his paw and smiled. Ah, I feel so young again, he squeaked. So full of energy, so alive. Really? Trap asked spectacally. You feel awake? Awake? Pickaxe repeated. I have never felt more awake in my life. I'm more awake than I've ever been. Zzz. Before he could finish his sentence, he fell into his Stone Age slumber. Bones and stones. Too much time had passed since a snoozer fly had stung him. It was too late for the tea remedy. Thea, Trap and I looked at one another. At first, we felt bad that Pickaxe couldn't be cured. But in the end, we decided he was perfect the way he was. Chapter 12. Spread the word. As soon as we reached Old Mouse City, the staff of Radio Gossip ran to meet us. I have the most amazing news. Get ready to spread it, Sally shouted, clearing her throat dramatically. The most beautiful, courageous, intelligent, charming, compassionate, modest and humble, Sally Rockmausen has heroically come to the aid of Trap Stilton-SHOO and cured him of the Stone Age slumber. When Sally's staff didn't repeat the message immediately, she shrieked, Well, what are you waiting for, fools? Spread the word. The first crier climbed to the top of a tall ladder, took a giant breath, and threw back his head. Then he yelled, Sally Rockmausen saves Trap Stilton-SHOO from the Stone Age slumber. The second crier gargled with salt water, smoothed her whiskers, patted her large stomach, and shrieked, Sally Rockmausen shaves Trap Stilton-SHOO and Stone Age slumber. The third crier performed some deep breathing exercises, then called out, Sally Rockmausen craves traps Stilton-SHOO, this Stone Age drummer. We couldn't help giggling over Gossip Radio's ridiculous broadcast. As usual, they made a mammoth mess of the story. Meanwhile, Sally clenched her teeth in rage. Eventually, the citizens of Old Moss City got the real scoop and began congratulating Sally and asking her for her autograph. Oh, it was nothing, Sally told her small crowd of admirers. Of course, I had to do everything myself, but then again, what do you expect from the Stilton-SHOOs? Holy boulders! The old Sally Rockmausen had returned. But while she was busy bragging, Sally accidentally tripped and fell into a stand of watermelons. Crash! For a second, Sally lay buried underneath the watermelons. She emerged with a scowl. You sure love watermelons, Trap remarked. Maybe you shouldn't eat them all though. Remember the hospital? How dare you! Sally shrieked, turning as red as a Jurassic pepper. From this moment on, we are going back to the way things were, my dear Stilton-SHOOs. What do you mean? Thea asked, acting surprised. You mean that a kind, modest rodent like you doesn't want to be BFFs with the entire Stilton-SHOO clan? Sally Rockmausen glared at all of us, then turned and headed toward the offices of Gossip Radio. I was about to return to my office when Trap stopped me. Hold on, cousin, he squeaked. Everyone's invited to the Rotten Tooth Tavern to celebrate my recovery. Right at that moment, Pickaxe woke up with a snort. He shook his head, got to his feet, and announced, I think I'll organize an expedition to the land of the sweltering muggy weather. Who's with me? A picture of the last 3 days flashed before my eyes. The boiling desert, the dangerous cliffs, the mirages, the terrifying saber-toothed tigers. Not me, I yelled, running toward the tavern. I had had my share of adventure for the month, and possibly for the next 2 or 3 geological ages. That's the truth, or my name isn't Geronimo Stilton, the cave mouse. The end. Please subscribe to my channel if you like this video.